Hi, Ben here, and welcome back to another Work in Progress Wednesday. So today we're going to be talking about axes. So some of you may have seen some of our videos where we're showing you how to sharpen axes, how to use an axe safely, carving a spoon, things like that. Up until recently we've only supplied two types of axes. We've supplied axes from Halterfors and also from Gransfors Brooks. Now they are sort of relatively expensive axes because they're a sort of handmade forged axe. And a few people had said, well, what happens if I haven't got that kind of money in my budget for my first axe for doing green woodworking and spoon carving? So we put our sort of thinking hats on, and I suddenly remembered that when I was first starting in green woodworking and bushcrafting, when I was only a kid with pocket money, I actually bought what was at the time a Sandvik axe. The Sandvik axes are now Bahco, basically they've changed their name. So this was an axe that I bought when I was about 13. It cost me a bit of money, it probably cost me about £15 even back then, and I used to take it with me all the time to the woods, to the point that I used it so much that I actually broke the original handle and ended up having to put my own handle on it. But I used that right through up until I was about 20 when I got my first Gransfors axe and I bought a small forest, and this one got sort of retired. But it made me think, yes, this was a relatively cheap axe, but it did everything I needed it to do at the time. I particularly liked the shape because it had got this sort of almost sort of tomahawk style axe head, and it was small and compact and not too heavy, and I could split timber with it and carve with it and pretty much do everything that you need to do for a sort of camp axe really. So we basically thought, well, let's see if we can source that axe. Obviously, like I say, they're now called Bahco, and they come with a nice ash handle. They don't come with a hickory handle, and they're cast rather than being forged, which means that they're a very regular shape, but obviously their liquid metal is basically poured into a mould to create the shape rather than it being forged out of one piece of steel with heat. So it does mean that they're a bit of a cheaper axe. Now obviously certain features on it will make it a sort of more budget axe. It hasn't got a wooden wedge in the top like the Gransfors axes or the Halterfors axes. It's just got a little plastic wedge in there, and obviously a sort of weird little display, a little hanger on there, which we will actually remove. And they come just wrapped with a bit of wax paper and a sort of fairly flimsy rubber protective guard. And certain things aren't particularly nicely finished, so they haven't sort of radiused the thong tube in the back of the handle and things like that. Just lack of sort of attention to detail to make them a cheaper axe. So I've taken one of the covers off this, and you can pretty much see it's very similar as to my old original. Obviously mine's been ground over the years, so it has got a little bit shorter, but the overall shape is the same. They weigh about 1¼ pounds, just over half a kilo, sort of 0.6 of a kilo, so they're not too heavy. But obviously, because they're cheaper, things that you'll notice straight away when you get them, if you bought them straight off the shelf, is they are not sharp, nowhere near sharp. Basically you've almost got like a millimetre of steel on that cutting edge, so you're not going to be able to do much with that straight off the shelf. So what we thought we'd do is we'd get the axes, we'd put a really good cutting edge on there, so we're going to regrind it, and we're going to take off that little plastic hanger and also radius the holes and things like that. So we're going to get you a sort of budget axe that's going to work straight out the box and give you something that's going to perform really well in the woods or for spoon carving. So we're just going to show you what the sort of process of getting this through, putting our Orford edge on it, and you'll be able to get these on our store later on. So we've come through into the grinding room, and I've set up one of my grinders with this rotary platen on there, and that's going to allow us to put a really nice apple seed grind on that cutting edge. So there's quite a lot of steel to remove, so I'm starting off with a relatively coarse 60 grit belt, and I'm just going to put that sort of primary edge on, and we're going to work through the grits and get that really nice razor sharp edge. So we've ground that now with the 60 grit. You can actually see that we've created that burr all the way along the cutting edge, so we know that we've actually got to a true cutting edge now. So now we need to just refine that grit and start to think about removing that burr. So just work through those grits. This is the final grit on this machine. Still got a burr on there, but we've refined that scratch pattern, and I'm really happy with the overall grind that you've got on there now. That's going to be a grind that's going to work well in wood, but also it's going to be easy for you to maintain and sharpen. So the final process is just to polish that, remove any burr, and get that razor sharp edge. So we're using a little bit of leather with a honing compound on there, just to put that real nice mirror edge on there and polish off that burr. So that's come off the leather. You can see we've got that real nice sort of mirror edge to it. So we'll just clean a little bit of that slurry off there. Make sure none of that compound's left on there. And then I'll look down the edge, make sure I can't see any burr hanging on. And then just test that sharpness. So that's feeling pretty zingy now. Obviously you can't run your thumb down it to test sharpness, so we normally use a piece of paper just to sort of test to see how sharp it is. That's looking pretty good. So that's the kind of Orford edge that you're going to get on your Bahco axe when you buy it from us. Obviously it's up to you how you want to finish the handle. We've radiused the hole so you're not going to get any hot spots, but the beauty of these axes is the fact that they've got a relatively large handle to them. If you want to, you could quite safely mask this up, put that in a vise and spend a bit of time with a spoke shave or a knife just whittling that down, making it perfect for your hand, for your grip really. But good quality ash handle on there, so you're going to have an axe. If it lasted me from 13 to 20, I should imagine you'll get a few years out of it as well. But yeah, that's really nice and sharp now. So that's all razor sharp, ready to go with that lovely new Orford grind on there. So what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of oil on there just to protect it, and then we'll place that rubber sort of protective edge cover back on it. Now that will be perfect for packaging, for sending out to you guys. It won't last long term if you're placing it in your rucksack and taking it to the wood steer. So we are going to offer a sort of budget leather sheath for it. If you don't want to stretch that to a leather sheath, maybe you can fashion one yourself. What I used to use when I was sort of really on a limited budget was find an old leather gauntlet or glove that you could place the axe in there, and that would protect it a little bit when you take it out in the rucksack out into the woods. But that's what we've been working on this Wednesday. Hope you've enjoyed seeing what we've been doing, and obviously hope that you enjoy these sort of budget axes. So if you do want to get spoon carving, then your pocket money isn't going to be the limiting factor. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.